Okay, it's coming to us sooner than I thought here. Greetings, welcome to beautiful Sonoma Raceway and the site of the next round of the GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS Season. I'm Ryan Marine. We've got Greg Kramer and Calvin Fish. They'll be in the booth here in just a moment as we get set to turn loose a couple of GT3 cars and also the GT Sports Club America Championship coming your way shortly. We've got Max Root joining us down here in the pits. We'll be hearing from Max in a moment on our Porsche track preview, but I want your thoughts ahead of time, Max, on what makes this track a unique challenge.
Yeah, definitely. Sonoma Raceway is a beautiful place. Obviously, I'm from California, and it's a fantastic track that we have here. It has a lot of elements of elevation, high speed, low speed, and the tire deck's amazing. So really to balance the car over the stint takes a lot of concentration, and you'll see at the end of the run kind of who has the speed still. And
for you as a Californian, does this place have any extra significance getting to race on home soil?
It definitely does. It feels good to be in your home state. I don't have to take 2 planes to go anywhere, so it's pretty awesome for an hour up from LA, and we're here ready to rock.
You and Fred, you've been paired up for some time racing in single-make Porsche competition. Now you make the step up to GT3. Has it gone as you anticipated? Yeah, we've had some hiccups for sure, but we went into it kind of with an open mindset, ready to take on the challenge, and we're really excited for this year, so thank you. Thank you very much, Max. The Pirelli P0's getting slapped on these race cars. We're getting close to the green flag, and the guys who will call that green flag are Greg Kramer and Calvin Fish. Guys?
Well, thank you very much, Ryan. And yeah, very good point here is those Pirelli P0s coming out of the tire warmers and going on those cars last minute here. Beautiful racetrack, Sonoma Raceway, a legend up here in California wine country for so many years on the north side of San Francisco Bay. And there you see those Pirelli P0s getting bolted on all the cars here, Cal. And in the Pro-Am category, which is the biggest class in this division, if you will, just by number of entrants, it's been an interesting and very diverse start to the season, hasn't it?
Yeah, 4 events so far, 4 different winners. James Safronis and Blakemolen took round 1, and then it was Baptiste and Fuentes. Martin Barkey and Kyle Marcelli won the 3rd round. Unfortunately, they're not here this weekend due to travel and quarantine regulations up north of the border. And then George Kurtz and Colin Brown, brilliant victory at VIR. So there's a tie at the top. With George Kurtz, Colin Brown tied with Baptiste and Fuentes leading this Pro-Am Championship.
And as we give you a look from the outside of this track, let's give you a look from inside a very fast Porsche GT3 machine with Max Root, giving you the Porsche track preview.
Hello, this is Maxwell Root, and this is your Porsche track preview at Sonoma Raceway. We're approaching turn 1 at about 140 miles an hour. Focusing on maximizing our rotation up here, down to 2nd gear, really getting all the power down using the rest of the road. We're approaching turn 3. This is an uphill elevation change that was really important to maximize power and to use the maximum road. Down to 2nd gear for 4. All the road here as well. This is a flat out section setting up for the carousel, which is a very important part of the track for time. Rotating the car here, opening my hands as I'm running all the way to the exit road. This is a nice place to take a small drink and refocus for the stint ahead. Braking right around the 250 board, down to 2nd gear, trailing the brake and rotating the car, parking it, and setting up for the back S section. Up to 3rd, 4th gear here. We're going to take a small lift into 8A and really maximize our speed as we open our hands and go down the back straightaway. Braking, this is a small fast chicane, 1st gear, small lift, and back to full power, flat out around 10. Opening our hands up and setting up for a successful 11 to complete the lap, avoiding a small bump here on the brakes, down to 1st gear. Waiting on the rotation, opening the hands, and maximizing the power all the way to the wall. Thank you, guys.
And I think the thing to really be aware of in watching that is the amount of adjustments on the wheel. It's all about grip at this track, and there's not much of it. Ryan Marine standing by with a global level driver.
Yeah, that's right. Jerome Blakemolen back in the championship, as is GMG. We haven't seen you guys since the opener at COTA. How exciting is it to get back together with this great team, with James, and then you here at this fantastic racetrack?
Yeah, it's great. It's been a long time for me outside of the States, since COTA actually, the longest break ever. But I love racing in America, and you can tell the atmosphere, the way they do things here. I just love it, and the team is doing a great job. I think we're pretty strong today, so let's see how far we can get.
Team has tremendous experience. You've got Brad Kettler helping out as well. What kind of resources do you have behind you? It's not your typical kind of one-off part season program, right?
No, everything is organized very, very well. Car setup, which is obviously one of the main things for pure performance, but also all the stuff behind the scenes with tires, everything is arranged like it should be. So it's, I feel really at home.
Great to have you back for sure on a busy weekend for GMG. 8 cars across all the classes in different series here this weekend, guys.
Yeah, it's remarkable what GMG is doing, and that's a remarkable talent, no question about that. But I think GMG broke their own record here with this entry of most cars at an event in a weekend.
Yeah, 8 here this weekend. They had 7 back in 2013, but great to see Jerome back here on US soil. First time he's competed here at Sonoma, and the same is the case for Trent Hitman, who will climb aboard this number 93 car halfway through this event. Now, they have moved that pit stop window from the halfway point. It's now going to be between minute 45 and 55 of this race to not coincide with the finish of the sports club races that are running here today in the same race.
Yeah, as those drivers are exiting the track right as the pit window opens, they decided to just give everybody a little bit of additional space. As we look at the track, I want to go back to that onboard lap with Max. I don't think I've ever seen an onboard lap where I've seen so many almost constant, significant corrections on a steering wheel, and it's because this place is so low grip.
It is low grip, but the track itself is very aggressive in terms of the aggregate, so it will wear those tires out. So the key is to have a nicely balanced race car. If you're working one end more than the other over the course of your stint here, there will be a 4-tire change during that driver change approximately halfway through, but you got to live with that. So if you got understeer, you got to minimize how quickly you're getting back to power and try to baby those tires a little bit.
And, of course, it's the same for everybody, so whoever manages it better is going to be out on the strong side. You know, hearing from Jerome Blakemolen, his co-driver and GMG owner, James Safronis, every time he shows up this year, he gets a pole. He had an overall pole in the first race at Circuit of the Americas this year. Today, earlier today, put it on pole in the Pro-Am class, 2nd overall to Shelby Blackstock. Here's a look at the CrowdStrike AWS Mercedes from DXDT Racing, coming off the first overall GT3 win for the pairing of Colin Brown and George Kurtz.
Yeah, it's just a combination that's really working well with the Evo kit on the Mercedes. Last year, they had a year that they were okay with, but they'd like to see better results, and then they turned it over to that Evo kit, and boy, oh boy, it's really got them in their comfort zone. Having said that, the DXDT team is struggling a bit to find the correct balance. It seems like there's a very big difference between what the 04 car is doing and the 63. Communicated with Ryan Dial just before the off here today, and he said, we just got massive understeer in our car, the 63 machine that he shares with David Askew. Conversely, Colin Brown is saying his car is loose, so I'll be curious to see what happens during the course of the run, whether Ryan's car will come back to neutral and he'll have better performance towards the end of the race.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, supposedly identical cars, but they all have their little idiosyncrasies and nuances. And there you see that beautiful black DXDT Usulco entry as it is getting ready to go. And then, of course, behind this group, you will see there is the number 57 of Stu Frederick. That is the GT Sports Club category entrant. This is the 2nd weekend of GT Sports Club competition on North American soil that debuted at VIR. This will be rounds 3 and 4 here this weekend. They're running with this group, so we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. But there is a good look at Shelby Blackstock in that Acura Accelerated Services Racer's Edge NSX GT3. And we saw last year that car was very, very good here, and that's carried through to this year, hasn't it?
It has. You know, it really works very, very well. And the silver-silver combination of Blackstock and Hitman, they're tough to beat because Shelby, when he goes up against the AMs, as we can see at the start of this race here today, he seems to have the pace to really put the car on the front all of the time. And then when he's backed up with Trent Hitman, one of the fastest young drivers in our paddock, I mean, that's a potent combination that John Meraki at Races Edge has put here. Unfortunately, they're not a 2-car operation this weekend. We mentioned briefly that Martin Barkey and Kyle Marcelli, unfortunately, in the number 80 Acura NSX are not showing here this weekend because of the kind of more stringent quarantine regulations north of the border, getting in and out of Canada where they're both based. So with Martin being a family man and with business responsibilities, it's hard to be locked down for 14 days.
Yeah, I think the getting out was easy. It was the getting back that was going to be a real struggle for him here. Here's a look at the starting lineup. There's Shelby Blackstock and that Racer's Edge entry alongside James Safronis for GMG. Martin Fuentes will be starting in the number 1 Ferrari, and then it will be the number 20 of Fred Portet on the AM class pole in that white and blue Porsche. And then you take a look, the DXDT Racing 04, George Kurtz, and the 24 from TR3 Racing, the Ferrari of Ziad Gandour, and then the 63 of David Askew in the Mercedes. And then, of course, at the back of that group, we have the GT Sports Club cars. And Jason Daskalos, who ran in World Challenge from 2007 to 13, had wins, had podiums and the like, has returned to the championship after his last year being 2013. Great to have him with us as well. He actually put it on the pole here, running in the overall category in front of points leader Ryan Gates, who was so strong at VIR with a couple of wins there. Jason Bell, who had 2 seconds at VIR, qualified 3rd here coming in. And then a couple of, or a new driver, Kyle Washington, and another of the GMG Racing cars running in the titanium class. That's for drivers 50 to 59. And then Stu Frederick, who we saw just a little bit ago, in the 57 GMG Porsche, running in the iron class. So that completes our field.
The checkered flag will come out for those guys in the Sports Club event at the 40-minute mark, and then shortly thereafter we'll open up that 10-minute pit stop window. 87 seconds is the minimum pit stop time, where 4 tires have to be changed along with the driver, and as always, it's so crucial for the teams to really monitor that closely. First, execute the pit stop without any delays, then typically they're waiting and just timing the release of the car from the pit box and from the stall to not get under that 87 mark. But they do have a 1-second joker that can be used once per weekend, so they can use it today or tomorrow if they cut under that by a few tenths.
When you say a joker, you're basically saying if it's 87, if you do it at 86.5, you can apply that joker second, you're okay.
That's right. And it's not like a combination. You can't have half a second today, half a second
right.
tomorrow. It's
use it once.
Use it once.
And here is the exit of what's called turn 4 and the drop into the carousel. And this is a daunting, high speed and off camber corner for a lot of it. This is a tricky place.
It is, and it really loads that right front typically. So again, if you got any understeer in the car where the car's not responding to your steering input, it will really grind on that right front through that particular corner.
And then the quick run, as Max said, this is maybe one of the few spots on this track where you can actually take a sip out of your drinks bottle and flex your hand for a minute before you get into the heavy braking area of turn 7. And you can see the different configurations, and they run this sort of interesting little shape here, like the bottom of a vase, if you will, and then come back out. And but you can run. You see where that line is there, which marks the track. They've been told you can run over that. You can get outside of that and really arc through that corner. We've seen some very creative moves done in there as this weekend's unfolded.
Yeah, people will work it differently depending on what the balance of the race car is. And track limits are into effect here, particularly through this upcoming turn 9 chicane. Turn 9, as you turn in right here, you can cut across that inside curb, but if you start dropping wheels right over into that dirt there, the stewards will be making note of that. In qualifying, you would have your lap time to lead it. In the race, you'll probably be given 3 warnings, and then you're going to be driving down pit lane to serve a big penalty.
And the lights are out on the Acura NSX. That is the official safety vehicle of GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS. And now the field being brought around under the control of the pole sitter, Shelby Blackstock, in that red and black, number 93 Acura with Safronis in that blue-white with orange-winged Porsche alongside. We are getting ready to go here. Round 5 of the championship for GT World Challenge America. Round 3 for GT Sports Cup. And onto the front straight we go, looking for the green flag, and it flies. We are racing. And right away, Blackstock into the lead. Safronis doing the smart thing and just tucking in and protecting. And a good run there by Fuentes, not letting Portet get up and alongside.
No, that was a really nice start there by Fuentes. He was immediately up on the wheel. He had a little moment actually climbing turn 1 this morning in qualifying, went off the road and got a little bit of underwing damage to the rear end of that Ferrari, but they got it sorted out for Baptista to take his qualifying run. So a nice start here by Shelby Blackstock, but immediately James Safronis putting the heat on.
Yeah, and Fuentes, he really wants to stick with these guys. He's certainly capable of it here because he's got a very quick co-driver in Rodrigo Baptista that he's going to be turning it over to. And Martin, of course, a multiple AM champion. And has just run up a string of victories over the years in the AM category, making the switch to Pro-Am late in the year last year, and they have very firmly shown that they belong here in this Hublot Ferrari.
Yeah, it's really a great combination to see the experience now of Martin Fuentes and one of the rock stars of our paddock over the last couple of years, running with the K-Pax squad, initially in GT4 and then with the Bentleys for a couple of years. Rodrigo Baptista just returned from Europe a couple of weeks ago, where K-Pax are now running in the SRO Endurance Championship. Had a very impressive start to their campaign at Imola, but unfortunately got involved early, but certainly showed his pace and his speed early on his European debut in the Endurance Championship.
The thing that impressed me, you think about Baptista last year here at this track. This is not a track that really suits the Bentley well. And everybody said, well, they're going to struggle. In the first race, he went out, qualified third, ended up with a second place finish. Hustling a car that really wasn't the best at this facility. That speaks volumes.
Yeah, it really does. He and Maxime Soulet were a great partnership, and certainly K-Pax, who are based here, that's their local track. So even though the Bentley shouldn't be suited to that, they use their home track knowledge to good effect.
And we're watching Jason Daskalos right there in that Audi R8 LMS Ultra. And the thing in GT Sports Club, there's the real pure GT2 cars that run in it, but older versions of GT3 machinery can run as well. And that is what Jason is running right now with this Audi. It's an older variant of the GT3 machine. So it has not quite the power, obviously, of the GT2 car, but a little bit better downforce and aero. And this track, downforce is big, so that's really been helping him out, I think.
It does, and with the GT3 machines, they're about 150 horsepower light of the monsters in GT2, which have about 700 horsepower to try and put down to the ground. But the GT2 cars have nowhere near the aero and downforce effect that you get from these GT3 machines. So on a race circuit like this, obviously the advantage sways the GT3 direction. But when we get to Road America, I'll be curious to see how the two classes stack up there.
Yeah, that's a whole different scenario right there. You don't run a lot of downforce. If you have a car where you can adjust it, and it's all about power. Here's George Kurtz, who is sitting in the 6th spot right now. And Ziad Gandour has had a great start of the 24 TR3 car. Here he is, that black entry, the TI Capital machine. And he has jumped around and moved up now into the 5th spot, devoting Kurtz one position at this stage. And Ziad, tell you an interesting story. He's very, very involved for a number of years in the Ferrari Challenge. And he comes in here right now. Last year, we was second in the Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli AM category, and was actually tied at the end of the season and lost it on a tiebreaker. That's how good he is and how close it was in that competition. And he has come up and decided to give it a go here as we now take a look at Fred Portet.
Yeah, and Fred is one of the amateur drivers who can really get up on the wheel. I mean, his performance at VIR was sensational. Didn't have the best start to the year at Coda, if you recall, had that crash in qualifying. And that probably dented his confidence a little bit, but boy, did he ever rebound at VIR. Tremendous performance there. Yeah,
superb qualifying run, and they just were able to convert that beautifully. And right now, sitting in a very solid 4th spot. And then there's Gandour, and then right behind him now is George Kurtz. And Gandour has done GT3 Cup level racing in Asia and in the Middle East. He even did some rallying, and somewhere along the line picked up the nickname Z-Dog, which he, or Z-Hog actually, which he says, I appreciate that. It's a compliment, at least in the area where he was running.
Yeah, and for George Kurtz, that was a big weekend for him, the whole CrowdStrike group. We have one of their seminars, a virtual seminar here. Unfortunately, they're not able to entertain their guests and clients with one of their seminars that they put together here this week here in Sonoma, but they certainly got all of their supporters watching on. And George and Colin Brown coming off a brilliant overall victory at VIR just a few weeks ago. And he just really driving a lot differently in qualifying this morning. He couldn't quite piece the lap together, but if you took his fastest sectors, he had a much faster lap going, but just showcases the potential here with the speed of that 04 car.
Well, as we said, this weekend, this event is sponsored by CrowdStrike, so kind of nice to have the CrowdStrike AWS car come in here as the most recent race winner. That certainly generates buzz for all of those VIPs and business members that are part of those seminars, as you said, and of course, just generally in fans. And then this is the second of the DXD cars. That is David Askew behind the wheel right now. And I'll tell you what, I'm impressed with Jason Daskalos' pace. He's hanging right with the back of this GT3 field.
Yeah, he's got a little carrot right in front of him in terms of the GT3 field. And David Askew's doing a really nice job. Good to see his confidence growing year to year. Got a great teammate in Ryan Dial, but Ryan said, we've really been struggling here this weekend. Just so much understeer in the car, we just can't dial it out. But they're hoping that the racetrack and the race car will come back to them a little bit by neutralizing as the tire wear starts to occur throughout the course of the run.
He's really, Dascalos really has put in he just turned a 143 flat. You think about it, everybody in front of him, all the way up to Portet, are running a little bit slower than Dascalos is. So he's showing that now he has done a little bit of racing since 2013 in another series with some partial runs and the like. So he's not completely rusty, and boy, he's proving that point.
Yeah, he really is. And right now,
ooh, real late move by Kurtz. And Gondor, some great track awareness to realize that he was steaming up the inside and decided not to turn in. You know, better to give it up now. It's a long time to go in this race.
Yeah, no, that was a nice move by George, and certainly Gandor either had a spotter telling him, or he could see him a bright orange nose of the Mercedes AMG looming larger in his side view mirror as he went to turn into turn 9.
So Kurtz now, that's going to promote him back up into the overall top 5. As they come whistling down the short front chute here, and now this climb into turn 1. And, you know, the two things, you know, obviously we love working with TV, but it doesn't give you necessarily the elevation climb that you've got there, nor the speed that those guys are flying up this hill in with high downforce cars. It's remarkably fast.
It is. As I mentioned, you can kind of see as they plunge over the hill, but when you're sitting low in a race car and you're looking over the steering wheel and over the front bulkhead there, you literally cannot see the edge of the road. So it's all about recognizing the placement of the car and the exact line you need to be on, dealing with these big elevation changes. You drop down into the carousel head, double apexer, kind of turn it in early, then try and wait on the car and then get it back turned, and just really uninterrupted acceleration is what you want off here and one of the highest speed parts of the racetrack. Then down in this heavy brake zone for turn 7. Similar situation here, double apexer with the wider configuration we're running this weekend. Tightening them back up, low gear, first gear as Max Root told us on the Porsche. Drive around this circuit. And then it's all about traction and maintaining that drive off the corners to accelerate down these high-speed stretches.
And as things have settled in just a little bit, let's get back down to Ryan Marine. What are you hearing in pit lane, sir?
Just adding to your conversation about the DXTT racing team and what you were talking about there, Calvin, it's so interesting that the two Mercedes have apparently gone very different directions with their setup. And evidently, it's the CrowdStrike livery car. That's the one that's going to start a little bit more neutral, but might struggle as the stint goes along. Ryan Dial was telling me, though, that the David Askew Dial car, it's going to start with a lot of understeer, but they actually think as the stint plays out and the tire wear, especially on the rear, plays out, that the handling might be coming back to them. But really interesting to hear that the two just are going completely different directions, and you might see that play out over the course of a stint with one car stronger at the beginning and the other towards the end.
Yeah, that was a big moment for Gandor there.
Wasn't
big
it?
twitch coming up the hill. And getting back to Ryan's comments there, yeah, I think they've ended up going in different directions. Not that they wanted to, it's just that with the setup that the 04 car has on it, the 63, they just can't get it to turn, so they've had to raise the rear of the car. They call that rake, like more angle front to back to front in terms of arrowing the front of the car down towards the tarmac to try and get the front end to bite. They've got a lot different on the setup there, and even with that, Ryan said, I just can't get the understeer out. But as Ryan also alluded to, as you get through the run here and the tires start to degrade a little bit, if those rear tires start to go away, that'll bring the car more in balance. And that's what I was looking for as a race car driver, is a balanced race car. You don't want to be fighting one particular end or the other.
And here is a look at Jason Dascalos as he continues to lead in the overall category for GT Sports Cup, running 8th overall. But, I mean, he's sitting right behind right now, 6th, 7th, and 8th in the GT3 and the GT World Challenge America field. He is really up on the wheel here.
Yeah, he seems very confident behind the wheel of this Audi. Audi's a really good balanced car. Seems to do everything pretty well. Doesn't, you know, super excel in any one compartment, but overall around the lap, it's very compliant. Seems to be good into the brake zones. Decent straightaway speed. Just a good all-around package.
I can only imagine the grin inside that helmet right now for the quality of the run that he's putting together here. And I'll tell you, once Kurtz was able to get around on Gondor, Geinerer did have that little bobble we talked about coming up the hill, but Kurtz has been able to open up a margin now, and in fact is starting to close down just a little bit on Fred Portet.
He has, took about a second out of him on that previous lap. So George is now into a rhythm, and I think that's what George Kurtz needs. He needs to be calm, he needs to be in a rhythm, and then he can really perform, and right now we're starting to see that.
Of course, he will be turning over to Colin Brown, who was in this car in particular. We've talked about it already this season, this new evolution of the Mercedes-AMG GT3 car. It's just suits each of their driving styles just a little bit better, and they've also just got the experience of a full year together in this Mercedes GT3 package, and I think it's all starting to come together and really coming to fruition right now.
Yeah, I think it is, and I think the key is that Colin has worked with George, not so much as a Crow driver, but coaching him over the years, certainly back when George took the GTSA championship with 9 victories in 2017 aboard a McLaren. I mean, they know what they need from the race car. Certainly Colin understands what George is looking for, and that really makes for a great combination when Colin can set the car up, give George the car he's looking for. He'll know a certain tendency in a race car he doesn't want to live with, and he'll work with his father, Jeff Brown, who's on the technical side of this race team as well. Colin and his dad obviously worked together since he was a young lad driving go-karts, so their chemistry is immense, and typically they get the best out of a race car. But I think you're spot on. With this Evo kit, has really found their comfort zone, and they're starting to show much stronger results this year.
You bring up a very good point that maybe we haven't talked enough about over the years, really, with the Pro-Am combination. You know, whenever you've got multiple drivers in a car, it's generally the combination. And if it's a pro-pro scenario, you guys come to the combination of, okay, what's fastest for us over the course of a stint, both of us. In a Pro-Am combination, is for the pro, they're going to compromise a little bit more because you want that Am to be confident and as fast as possible, so that when you turn that car over to them, they can do something with it, and conversely at the start, that they can be very competitive right from the off, so when the pro gets in, they're in the fight.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have a pro and they're not quite comfortable with the balance, maybe they're losing 2 to 3 tenths, for example, in terms of laps. I see George a little bit wide there on the entry to 7. However, if you give a car that's not got the balance to an Am driver, they may be a second off the pace. So it's all about really focusing on that. Not to such a degree you can't drive the car, but, you know, I think it's really geared more towards making the Am comfortable. And the other thing is, if they're comfortable, they can drive it hard. They can not make the mistakes, and it's the mistakes you're trying to eliminate, really, in this form of racing.
Here's a look. We just seen our top 3 in the shot. This is second place Safronis in that GMG Thermal Club CrowdStrike 511 tactical entry. He sits second to Blackstock in the overall order. Now Safronis leads in Pro-Am, and then there is Martin Fuentes in the Hublot Alpha Prime Squadra Corsa Ferrari. And right now sits about just under 2.5 seconds adrift to Safronis.
You know, just climbing the hill in qualifying, he got a little bit wide going through turn 1 and then hit a couple of big bumps, lost the race car, and then after that there was a lot of smoke coming from the right rear corner. So initially I thought it was maybe an engine issue and he'd spun on some fluid or something. That was not the case, because they were able to rectify it in the very short, brief intermission between the 2 qualifying sessions this morning. Got Baptista back out there, and as you can see, the car's running fine now.
It is, a matter of fact, Ryan, more information on Fuentes in this Hublot Ferrari.
I did check with the team, Gregory Romanelli, who heads up that team, about just what kind of damage was sustained, and he said it was very, very minor, really easy to get that fixed. Their bigger concern, guys, is tire degradation, and they feel like that Ferrari is going to struggle relative to the competitors. In particular, the Mercedes are the ones that they have their eyes on as maybe the strongest on tires over the course of a stint. So from speaking to the team, it sounds like they think their drivers are going to have their hands full as they get to the end of their stints today.
And is that maybe why Fuentes has backed off just a little bit? Maybe he thought, you know, I'm taking a little bit too much out of the tire right now. And in the end, it's better to be a tenth off right now than 4 or 5 tenths in the last few laps before the driver change.
Well, Martin is certainly experienced enough now to know and read what the tire has given him and how much he's taken out of the tire at the same time. So very much time management is a factor here at Sonoma Raceway. And again, it's nothing to do with the Pirelli B0s. It's just this racetrack is almost like a cheese grater. If you start to abuse one end or the other, it's just going to grind those tires down. As you lose a little bit of the tread depth, that then relates to more overheating as well.
And after that little wide run through turn 7, looks like George is regrouped. That cost him a little bit of time to Portet. but now he has been able to put together a couple of good laps and has stabilized that once again as he sits in that 5th spot overall, but 3rd in the Pro-Am class.
Portet again, really impressive here. I mean, it looked like Kurtz was just going to charge up onto his rear bumper, but Portet has responded. I mean, the key is how much is the drop off. And right now, if I look at the leader, for example, Shelby Blackstock, his fastest lap is 140.5. His last lap was a second off of that. Portet's fastest lap, 142.1. He's less than a second off of that. So it's the consistency there and managing these tires and the balance as it starts to go away on you a little bit.
Let's see. Z-Hog himself, Mr. Gondor, having a very stout run down through the carousel, but looking in his mirrors, and it looks like David Askew maybe has been able to figure out the Mercedes a little bit, and starting to, and he too comes in really hot.
Yeah,
got
both he and George,
yeah.
kind of a cut and paste there in terms of the vision of the Mercedes coming through 7A. Whistling down through the S's here, a little breathe there through 8, and plunge down there towards the brake zone for turn 9. We're on top of those track limits there on the inside right-hander.
Behind them, still hanging right in there, is Daskalos, leading in the GT Sports Cup category over Gates, who was the double winner at VIR. Then Jason Bell sits 3rd. He had 2 seconds at VIR. Stu Frederick runs 4th in the Sports Club category, but leads the Iron category, and Kyle Washington 5th and leads the Titanium category.
Remarkably, Jason Bell is in his 5th race of the weekend, and he's still got 3 more to go after this. So he's been a busy boy running 8.
Yeah, he's got one of them right after this, as a matter of fact, doesn't he? So we've got the GT4 Sprint X that he's running with Andrew Davis. So
yeah, it's literally a question of charging down the pit lane and jumping in. So this event will be checked after 40 minutes. So we'll have a little bit of a break while the rest of the GT3 runners finish their 90-minute event, and then they'll be jumping behind the wheel of the GT4. But this morning he finished the sprint round in GT4 and then was literally in a GT2 car with almost twice the horsepower and a totally different animal to deal with in qualifying just a few minutes later.
Watching Ryan Gates right here in the 311 RS Motorsports Porsche, who pretty much just controlled the entire weekend at VIR. And this is a time attack champion driver, multiple champion driver, but you know, time attack is basically like qualifying. It's go out, set a time. You're not racing door to door. You're just going out, setting a time, and then having other people see if they can beat it. Then you go and try and set a faster time. And that was how he sort of approached VIR. It almost looked like he just went out every lap. To him was a time attack lap, and he just went after it. Here he's going to learn the nuance of tire management, that's for sure. But he just loves getting up on the wheel of these cars.
Yeah, it's a very different dynamic. We almost see that from him in the qualifying sessions. He'll do a lap and then just cruise around. And but when you're doing a race, it's like one after the other. It's the continuity and the consistency that you're looking for. So I'm sure it's a big learning curve for him.
He certainly adapted well. Here's a look at Jason Bell working his way through the legendary S's here at Sonoma Raceway. This section of racetrack that prompted a number of years ago, I asked Hans Stuck what was his favorite track in North America, and he said it was this one. And I said, really? And you know, thinking about it back in the era when he was driving 962s through here, and he said, oh, the S's is magnificent. And to me, that speaks volumes.
Yeah, it certainly does. We're talking about the monstrous horsepower of these cars, these GT2 machines at 700 when you got 1,000 horsepower on tap with these massive turbos back in the Porsche 956 and 962 days. That was an animal to try and wrestle around here, but you know, Stuckey would have been up to it.
Indeed, and Blackstock up to it right here, just doing a superb job once again in the Acura Accelerated Services Racer's Edge machine. Has just consistently been able to lap almost half second or more quicker than Safronis right now. And Shelby really has just clicked with this Acura.
He really has, and he's a really nice young man. His mother is actually the country western superstar Reba McEntire, even though they don't share the same surname. But certainly he's cut his teeth in a variety of GT races, did a little bit of single-seater racing around in Indy Lights for a short period, but I think this is his home, and I think this is where he sees his career long term. And I think when you team him up with another youngster with a great talent like Trent Hitman, they're going to be awfully tough to beat. You can see with the silver-silver combination, they're the only one to run with that driver grading pairing. You can see what they can do with Shelby's ability and able to start this race against the AMs, or the lower graded driver in your lineup. He can just really take it home here to a nice comfortable gap here before he turns it over. And for Trent Hitman, it's all about then managing the race.
VIR, they ran afoul of a yellow flag happening. The pit window opened, and they looked like they were all set up for another big win, dominating win, and stayed out while some of the other teams pitted. And then a yellow flag happened right in the middle of the pit window, and it ended up catching them out. And it ended up producing one of the best races we've seen in a while between Trent Hitman and Kyle Marcelli in an absolute duel. But that's all part of the strategy you've got to deal with.
Yes, for sure. Here we see James Safronis, a busy man. He said they shut down for about a couple of weeks, and then they were hard back at it, kept all of his staff employed. So everyone dealing with different hardships in terms of the COVID situation, but for this team, certainly doesn't seem to have affected their racing business. They show up here with 8 cars this weekend.
Well, part of that was he said that we weren't planning that, but they ended up having a test where they, got the cars up here, and a number of the drivers that are part of the GMG umbrella, when they decide they want to run every once in a while, they all came and they had such a good test, and it was such a positive energy and vibe that all of these drivers said, yeah, okay, let's go up to Sonoma and run. We want to do that. And of course that made all the blood drain from Joe Foster's face, as he's the logistics guy that had to make it happen. But they have, and they haven't missed a beat. And I mean, in the GT4 sprint class, a number of the cars there were absolutely right at the sharp end of things yesterday.
Well, I think it was a period in all of our lives, Greg, where there was so much uncertainty and so much unknown, and we weren't racing for a long time, and then the ability to travel safely and then get to a racetrack and interact with, you got to interact with certain people over the course of the weekend. You can't just drive or walk around in solitude. So I think the SRO, with the experiences in Europe and certainly the leadership that we have here, did a tremendous job of implementing the policies and the structure that once we got through VIR, people realized that you could come to the racetrack,
Yep.
You could still enjoy it. The racing was still great on the racetrack. And even though you can't socialize as you normally would on a race weekend, which is really a key part of the enjoyment factor for a lot of these drivers, they still realized they wanted to be here.
Well, I think part of it that really kind of gave a lot of confidence to people was the fact that the SRO COVID protocol, as they put it, in Europe, and much of that was adopted for here in North America, was actually more stringent than most states have. And so they realized, and they said, now if we can get the tracks to agree to work with us on this level, and some of the tracks were like, that's exactly how we wanted to handle it as well. Everybody realized, yeah, this is doable, and it all came down to everybody having to be willing to follow those protocols. And VIR, as you said, showed that yep, this can happen, and it's just wonderful to be back at racetracks, as you said. George still sitting in that 5th spot, and the struggle for him right now with Portet is they're almost running identical times, so he's staying right there, but he can't do much to be closing it up. And here now Blackstock has caught, I think that's Stu Frederick, and has worked his way by Stu in the GT Sports Cup category. And once again, a lot of this is just to point out, those GT2 cars don't have anywhere near the downforce of a purebred GT3 machine like this. A lot more power, but you have to get rid of all that power and speed to get through corners over a lap. These GT3 cars are just faster, period.
Yeah, I mean, they're losing about 150 horsepower to the GT2 machine, but in terms of downforce and aero efficiency, a lot stronger. So that's exactly how they were designed in terms of the GT2 car. Is going to be more of a muscle car, as I'd call it, in terms of point and squirt and just try and hang on to it, and certainly is a thrill. And I would think at Road America we'll probably see top speeds delta about 15 to 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, I would think so, absolutely. As we're watching this beautiful Racer's Edge machine, what are they saying down in pit lane?
Well, I think they, like everyone else, are really curious about what the tires are going to do over the course of a stint. And Trent Hitman was telling me, if you go back to one of the practice sessions, they ended up way down at the bottom, and it had us all scratching our heads. And evidently, one of the things that they were doing were just trying to run older tires to get an idea, at least, of what to expect towards the end of the stint. The other thing they were doing in that practice session, it was just a chance for Trent to learn the nuances of this racetrack. Like you've talked about, amazingly, he's never been here before. So he was taking that opportunity to learn a few things, and he said there's no sense in burning up a fresh set of sticker tires just for me to count out laps and learn my way around the track. So he felt like they killed two birds with one stone, being able to go out there, run those laps, have him learn his way around, plus get a sense for what the car is going to feel like over an entire stint. But even then, it's just an approximation. He was saying they never did more than 5 laps in succession, so he's really going off into the unknown when he jumps behind the wheel here in a little bit.
Well, that's an interesting point, that they haven't really strung together those laps, because it's right about in that 5-lap window we're hearing that with this this aggressive scrubbing that this track produces, that you see a drop-off that's pretty significant. You don't get it back, do you?
No, it's hard to recover. They call it falling over the cliff. So once you're down to that lower level, that's where you're going to be sitting for a while. So, but they're a savvy group, and I think they did the smart move by running old tires, even though, you know, it's free practice too. They are right at the bottom of the charts there, about 2 to 3 seconds off the leader's pace. But that's what you're going to see between a sticker run and a well-used tire run, about that 2 to 3 second drop off. But I think when we look right now, I mean, Blackstock encountered a little bit of traffic on these recent laps, but he's been running lap times typically about 1.5 seconds off of his best. So that's perfectly acceptable in terms of the tire deg that you're looking at.
Yeah, what's the old saying? There's not a lot of point in winning practice. And, you learn more. Practices for learning, qualifying's for speed, and, you know, then you get together for the race to go after the trophies. But this is a guy who's accrued a number of trophies over a pretty amazing career, and probably World Challenge, now GT World Challenge America. We were talking about it. It's a quarter of a century, I think, that he's been running in World Challenge, and has one of the few guys with over 200 starts.
Yeah, pretty amazing. 27th year running in World Challenge competition. So he's been there, done that, and seen it all, certainly. And he recognized that he's got great experience in his camp this weekend with Jerome Blakemolen co-driving with him, and Brad Kettler. I think Kettler's been involved in 6 Le Mans victories, overall victories that is, at the prototype level, typically with the Audi camp. So just a ton of experience there, and even though he's just coming out for a play, he's not fighting for a championship this year. You know that James Safronas expects to win.
Yeah, he lives for it, I think, as any real competitor does. And really has just had a remarkable career. I remember when he first started, dating myself here, because I was announcing it when he started back in that era, with his brother, Greek Brothers Racing, they called it, open trailer, the whole story. And he's one of the guys that has used racing in a way to build a real successful major business. And for a while, they actually had a lineup. It was called World Challenge, derived parts for Porsches. I mean, that's how committed and connected to the series he is.
Yeah, I think it's great to see. I mean, James Clay has done it with Bimmer World. Will Turner did it with Turner Motorsports, who used to run in our championship, of course. So, you know, there's really been a great platform to connect the road racing and aftermarket world along with the race car program.
Look there again at Ziad Gondor. And he's actually starting to find some speed here. That last lap, he took over 1/2 second off of Kurtz, and has got margin now down to about 1.5 seconds. So Ziad is starting to really find some pace.
He really is, and he's done a great job here today. He's got Jeff Siegel running with him. Jeff just got announced that he's going back to Le Mans this year with a WeatherTech Racing entry, so congrats on that, Jeff. But right now he's really focused here on training and coaching Ziad here. And Jeff's got really a great mentor and coach. He's really big into the sim world. Runs a great operation down in Miami, where a lot of drivers come to his facility to try and learn new tracks or learn the craft of driving. And Jeff's a really smart young man who great to have him back in our championship co-driving this number 24 Ferrari this weekend for TR3.
I think one of the cool things is, yes, he's got that where you can come to his facility and get massive sim training, but if you just can't make that trip, he's got a program that works where you can sit at the other side of the world and do your sim driving, and he's right there in his Miami office watching it, looking at data, giving you information. I mean, he really has taken this whole sim coaching concept to a whole new level.
He really has. He's super impressive with everything he does. He's rock solid behind the wheel, doesn't make mistakes, and he's someone that you're going to call if you're trying to put a program together or you're trying to improve a program. Typically, he's able to come in here and just fine-tune you a little bit, whether you're driving or a team, in terms of how you set up, how you operate on the race weekend.
And it doesn't matter what kind of car, but particularly, I think, if you're looking at driving a Ferrari, you want to give Jeff a call. That's a biggie. And that Le Mans program that they announced that he's going to be a part of, it's not going for the AM category. They're going for the GTE Pro.
Yeah, switching it up, Tony Vilander and Cooper McNeil, so it's going to be a very strong driving trio, but you're going up against some big factory teams, but nonetheless, they feel that with the team they've got together there, they can give it a crack.
And Gondor now is basically right with Kurtz here, and just watching the lines here, Gondor just is a little bit more aggressive. You know, he's willing to take a little bit more curb here and there. And I think that just, you know, he's floating a little bit more speed in spots and the like. See what he's able to do here. See if, and sometimes what happens, you get a guy now that's within 0.6 of a second of you and pushing you like that, you up your game, and we'll see if Kurtz now starts to get a little bit closer to Portet as a result.
Just really impressive performances here, though. George has found his rhythm, but this Ferrari behind him is not going away. This is a battle for third in class, as you see Portet now coming up on one of the GT2 entries.
That's Kyle Washington.
Oh, tight there for Kurtz to try and figure this out. It's almost like the 32 car doesn't know where to disappear to.
Yeah.
Give Gondor a run here.
Well, I think you're right. He's trying to figure out what do I do, and he realized just couldn't do anything with it. But boy, he had a head of steam built up.
He did, and for Washington, he did a nice job of doing his best to get out of the way. And that's just really being thrown into the melting pot there. Just doesn't have the experience to deal with those type of situations. Big learning curve for this sports club division.
Well, and you know, as they say, at a certain point, you got to turn into the corner. If you're trying to give that guy a little room or whatever, but suddenly you're going to be off the track, you've got to turn in. And yeah, I thought Kyle was doing everything he could here, but that has really cracked the whip for Ziad here. And he is in full attack mode right now on George.
Yeah, he's driving really well. You can see he's at home with the car. He's really got a nice rhythm and flow, maximizing every inch of the road. Seems to be pretty well balanced. They were concerned, the other Ferrari camp, about, oh, and as I say that, he loses the rear end coming out of the carousel. Ferraris were concerned about tire degradation and maybe losing it compared to the Mercedes. But Kurtz has suddenly caught Portet, so this is not a battle for a class position. Portet leads in the AM, whereas Kurtz is running third in Pro-Am currently.
When that pit window opens in this Pro-Am category, when they start putting the pros behind the wheel, if they're all grouped together, it ends up usually being just absolutely stunning racing. Although, that said, it's going to be tough to beat what we saw with the AMs in the last half of the final race at VIR, where they put on a spectacular show.
Yeah, it was awesome stuff. It really was. George Kurtz hanging on for that overall victory. Really fun to see as we now see Portet just getting to the inside there of Frederick, Stu, giving him room. This is where that GT2 car will have a little bit more horsepower, but when you're getting it through the corners a little bit better, it doesn't really showcase itself here on a track such as Sonoma Raceway.
Yeah, and I think coming out of 11, Stu could have dropped the hammer with that 700 horsepower and given Portet a big run, and I think he just realized, yeah, that's not what I want to do here, and just lifted a little bit. But now Kurtz has caught him in just the wrong spot on the track. And Gondor is right there.
He's loving this little multi-class race. There's some fluid coming out of the right rear there.
Saw that too.
hot day at all. It's been very mild, beautiful temperatures here, starting off in the low 60s early morning for qualifying and practice sessions, and just creeping into the mid 70s here this afternoon. So it shouldn't be any overheating issue with that car, any overflow issues.
This Fuentes has gone around Sofronis. No, check that. That's caught me out again, I think. No, I think that might be.
Yeah,
James has all the orange on that car.
He does, yeah. That is a change of position there, and that's for the lead in Pro-Am. So Fuentes has taken the Hublot Ferrari to the lead. Number 1 Ferrari around James Sofronis. I'm not sure if Sofronis had an issue with traffic possibly or what happened there, but certainly a big delta on this lap.
Let's go back, take a look at it.
This is down into turn 7.
Oh, he ran wide.
Just got in there deep. I'm not sure if he was into the ABS there, just took the brakes in, and when the ABS takes over, rather than letting the wheels lock up, it just takes away brake pressure, and he couldn't make the apex.
The only way to get out of that is to actually come off the pedal a little bit, I suppose, and you're whistling into a turn at serious speed. Not easy to do.
No, pretty much going to end up with the same end result. You're going to miss the corner a little bit. So it's just really managing that. And again, James is not driving these cars week in, week out like he used to.
Right.
So a little bit deeper into the stint here. Maybe lost focus just for a moment. Probably looking in his rearview mirror, seeing where Martin was, and maybe just missed his braking point marginally. And that was the consequence, losing the lead.
Well, and for Martin and Rodrigo, that's big points implications. And again, very early into this race, obviously, as, oh, look at this, a little more traffic as they get around Jason Bell. And again, Gondor thought he may be able to do something, but Kurtz and Brown came in absolutely dead even with Baptista and Fuentes. And with Kurtz now running 3rd in class, and Baptista and Fuentes with that pass, Fuentes now, that's a big swing if it should stay like that. Again, a lot of racing to go.
Yeah, there really is. And just a couple of 3 minutes away from the checkered flag for the sports club division. And then 5 minutes after that will be the opening of the pit window. 10 minutes. Can't come in before the 45 minutes have gone on the clock, and you've got to be in 55 minutes in. Not completely serviced, but at least be on pit lane.
And right there was what I was talking about. You see Kurtz very mindful of that curb at 9A and that left-hander, and Gondor just willing to be right up on that curb.
Yeah, Ferrari's hooked up. Certainly the front end is there. It looks like he may be searching for rear grip a little bit at this stage of the game. We saw it through the carousel a little bit as he exited turn 11, where you're really just trying to get the power down. These cars also have TC traction control that can help you in that traction area of the car.
And neither of them, whether it's the ABS or the TC, are the panacea that just solves everything. And people sometimes don't really think about the traction control is great as you accelerate forward coming out and not allowing wheel spin. But if you're on the absolute limit laterally in a corner, traction control doesn't help.
No, it's just going to stop you from maybe adding more power at a certain point. But essentially, if you've got a lot of pendulum, as I call it, in the car as you're turning in, it's not going to save the rear end for you.
All right, we are, looks to me like a minute left in our GT Sports Cup category. And Daskalos has just handled this one beautifully from the off. As we're watching George here, there is Jason. He's not sure where he is on the track here. It's bottom of the carousel. He may get one more lap.
It's going to be tight. He's about halfway around, so it's going to be really close to when that checkered flag drops on this class of racing. Superb run. I mean, just really been up on the wheel all weekend long. Car looks good. Laid down a couple of laps of qualifying for this one within a couple of hundredths of one another. So it just really shows the consistency and the balance and confidence that he has in the race car here this weekend.
And he was hanging with the back of the GT3 field for a while, and he's drifted off of that just a little bit here at this stage, I think. Possibly because he pushed a little hard. The tires are past their prime, and as he's coming up to put a lap here on one of his GT Sports Club compatriots. The other reason is he had a huge lead, and he may have thought, all right, just bring it home now, get a win. And I think the checker should be out, shouldn't it? I'm not sure.
Yes, it was out, so
Yep.
I think he's got checkered there. So a nice win there for Jason Daskalos. His debut run, first time we've seen him this year.
Yeah, nice to have him back. He was a great competitor back in 2007 to 13. And great to have him back in the championship and enjoying things at a little bit of a different level right now. And a great run for him as well. And Gates, so Gates coming home in second spot. So, but with his 2 wins at VIR and Daskalos being absent there, he is going to be able to stretch that points margin over Jason Bell, who had 2 seconds at VIR, and brings it home in third as our pit window has opened. And right from the off, Blackstock is in.
Certainly was a brilliant stint by Shelby Blackstock. So I guess the information that we did receive about that pit window moving is not the case. It's going to be between the 40 and 50-minute mark of this race here today. So taking the first opportunity as the leaders to jump in. Job well done there by Shelby Blackstock.
Boy, wasn't it?
Now the key is going to be how long they're on pit lane here. 87 seconds is the minimum stop time. You don't want to be too far outside of that. Looks like there's a little bit of a scramble going on. The real key is going to be waiting now to see if they wait to release him. And they are. Not by long, so they were tight there.
Yep. See what he comes up with here. So watching for the time, and not bad. You get 87 seconds, and it was 87.8 for that changeover.
Still waiting for clarification in terms of whether he did meet the window. We were told some information where it had been bumped a little bit later so that it didn't coincide with the finish of the sports club races. So not sure if there's some confusion down there with the Racers Edge group. This could be catastrophic in terms of if they're outside of that window to do this driver change and 4 tire change that they just did. Nice pit stop delta, only 0.8 of a second outside of the minimum, so they did everything right there. Now Hinman's up on the wheel, you can see him. I mean, the good news is now that they're allowed to use these tire warmers, so it shouldn't take long for Trent to be running really quick lap times.
So Fuentes now assumes the lead over Sofronis, and then Portet. Martin, he's very much in a rhythm right now. And this is one of the things you can adjust. You've got 10 minutes for that window, so you can adjust if you decide, you know, even though the second driver might, in theory, be a little bit quicker. If the guy who's in the car is really throwing down some laps and finds himself in a groove, you might say, and as you said, you can, there's software you can look at where are we going to come out, etc. You might just say, let's just leave him in a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of factors. You certainly don't want to do your pit stop. It might seem the best way in terms of slicing the cake, and then suddenly you come out in traffic. So they can analyze that, see if they do a good stop, 87 seconds, where that would put you out in the field. And it seems like everyone else is hanging on a little bit longer. So I would suggest that that pit stop window had been bumped by 5 minutes. So maybe the 93 car is going to be in trouble for that. We'll have to wait for clarification, of course.
Well, and Ryan might have that for us right now in pit lane.
Yeah, I checked with the series official, and our information is correct. So the memo must have been missed somehow. The window was indeed moved. So, yeah, they're going to have to serve a penalty or something, because they clearly didn't get the memo that something had changed as far as the regulations are concerned, and that's a big hit.
Oh, it's huge, absolutely. And that'll really set the cat amongst the pigeons here, no question. And we saw up on our graphic screen it popped up that the pit window had opened as well. So, but nonetheless, it doesn't take anything away from the drive that Shelby put in, and certainly it's an absolutely great run by this team here. So we'll see how that all plays out.
Well, I would think that the minimum penalty, if they are outside of the regulations, would be a drive down pit lane. So that's going to cost you 30-odd seconds at least. So we'll wait and see how the officials handle this, and get in communication with John Meraki and determine whether they were outside the boundaries there.
There's a look at Shelby as he has crawled out of the car. There's John to his left, I think. And The irony here is that if there is some sort of an issue, it comes after having an absolutely superb pit stop.
Yeah,
you know.
But the fact is that typically with the AM starting, you would expect a flood of activity right now. You'd be getting what's deemed as the slightly less efficient driver out from behind the wheel, and no one has taken that bait yet. So now the new window is open at 45 minutes in, so we could start to see some activity now.
Exactly, and tell you, but Martin has just been absolutely on form. Great job in qualifying, and just great aggression in the race here. Was in the right spot when James Safronis had that little bit of an overrun down into 7 and knifed through, and he has just thrown in some laps here.
Well, great recovery and rebound too. You'd have to think after that off, if it was him getting a little bit wide, that knocks the confidence a little bit. So he laid down a pretty good lap that put him third on the grid, but nonetheless, with that high speed off to get back behind the wheel and just attack and be aggressive around this racetrack. Great rebound for him as he now hits pit lane. So yeah, I am assuming that the 93 Racers Edge team may be in a little bit of trouble for not activating that pit stop during the new pit stop window.
Yep, Safronis has followed him in. So now we'll see what unfolds at this stage. And the Squadra Corsa TR3 group goes to work. And here comes the GMG machine into their pit stop. And they attack tires and fuel.
Yeah, this is all mandatory. It's not optional. Driver change has to happen, and 4 tire change. We see the rest of the field streaming into pit lane.
It was about midpoint of the season last year when they adopted the tire warmers as well, which has made a huge difference for the driver getting in the car at this stage with those new tires.
Yeah, and it's really minimized the ability or the efficiency of doing what we call the undercut, where you come in early and get those fresh tires on, which you know, take some time to get up to speed. So everyone's kind of adopting a more of a pit early strategy if you've got drivers of equal ability.
And Rodrigo Baptista has now taken over for Fuentes. Take a look at that stop length here. It looks close. I'm not sure it was as close as it really looked. Well, maybe it was.
Yeah, because suddenly David put on the anchors there, no pun intended, as a sailor, and got into his box.
But that exchange, 87.8 seconds for Fuentes. Ooh, Safronis to Blakemolen, they left about 5 seconds on the table, Cal.
That's not good. It's going to cost him.
Let's see how some of these other stops have played out. Again, 87 seconds is you should be able to get it done in that time, but just one little hiccup somewhere can certainly create the issues. Gondor and Siegel a little light, but they've got that 1 second to play with. That was 86.8. It's an efficient stop.
Nice.
How about Portet de Route, 87.39.
Yeah, as the season goes on, typically everyone tightens up on that. And certainly for GMG, who have not been running a car since Coda, probably a little bit of rust there on that pit stop exchange.
I'll tell you, for Greg Romanelli at TR3, looking at that, he's got to remember, okay, tomorrow, don't count on the choker at this stage. That was a stop. Baptista, he doesn't waste time, does he? He just gets up on it here.
Yeah, he's kind of quiet. I think when we first met him, almost introverted. He's starting to find his confidence now as he matures and is a bit more outgoing. Particularly, I think, as he starts to drive with guys like Maxime Soulet and Alvaro Parent and Andy Suchek and guys like that. They're in more of a team camaraderie type aspect versus just driving the race car, going sitting in the corner of the transporter, doing your download and doing your debrief. you get brought into the party, so to speak. So I think it's been really good for him to suddenly get to a co-driver situation.
Well, and he was one of those people that is so shy, and you don't realize it at first. And I think a lot of people took it as arrogance. You know, you try and talk to him, he'd smile, whatever, and he just wouldn't, give you the time of day. And then you get to know him just a little bit, and you realize he was just incredibly shy. But he was also one of those guys that, with that demeanor out of the car, you snap that visor down, and a whole different animal would emerge.
He reminded me a lot, both in looks at an earlier age and in terms of being quiet as Juan Pablo Montoya. Now you can't stop Montoya from talking, so
exactly.
maybe he'll become the same animal.
Colin Brown now behind the wheel. And he is right behind Jeff Siegel, and that's that stop we were talking about a half second shy of the 87 second, but because of the joker, they should be okay. And that was just enough with the exchange from Kurtz to Colin Brown to get Siegel out in front.
Yeah.
That's how important these stops can be.
Yeah, and Siegel's up on the wheel. You can see that, just maximizing the radius on the exit of the carousel. Really tidy driver, a lot of respect for him. Great to see Colin Brown really up on the wheel now in one of these GT3 machines. He's been such a bullet in terms of everything he's driven throughout the course of his career, young Colin Brown, but GT3 racing never seemed to quite be in his wheelhouse, but this year he really seems to be on song and seems to be demonstrating the confidence and the speed and the powers that we've seen him drive within every other category in terms of the highest level of prototypes as well.
Yeah. Some of the stuff we've seen him do has just been remarkable. And, you know, part of it, you know, and he's pretty free to admit it. He said that the previous version of this Mercedes-AMG GT3, great car, he said, but just the idiosyncrasies of that car didn't necessarily fit my style nor George's. And he said this car now, he said, we've got a lot more experience with it. We've been able to tune the car, but we've also been able to tune us to the car. But just generally, it's a little bit just more in our comfort zone as drivers, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, I'm curious to look at the balance of this car. The information we got from the team, from Ryan Dial in particular, was that the 04 car is a little bit more neutral in here, so a little bit more freer, a little bit more oversteer in the car possibly. The key is, what is it going to be like at the end of this run to the checkered flag? So might be really quick right now. It's maintaining that balance over the long run here, still 37 minutes to go.
It's going to be interesting to see now whether the next car in front of these two is Max Root, running 4th overall, is the AM leader, so it wouldn't be a class position battle. But Max here on the last lap ran half a second quicker than this duo. Here he is. He's the driver who gave us that great onboard lap. And as we're watching Max doing what he does so very well, let's hear from Ryan, from our GT Sports Club overall winner. Nice to have him back in our paddock.
It is indeed. We already have a winner to congratulate here as race cars continue to circulate. Jason, welcome back to the series. Welcome back to Victory Lane as well. How was the return to racing at this level? Did it go as you anticipated?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, the last race I did in World Challenge was 2013, and in the Viper with Dodge, and it's great to be back. And obviously, you know, being off for that long, it's hard to get back in the car, but we had a good result and great finish, and it was fun to run with some of the, you know, the newer GT3 cars. So it was a great race.
Awesome. Congratulations. Well done, and best of luck tomorrow.
Hey, thank you.
I think he was being a little bit humble there. I was mega impressed when he's hanging right with the back of the current GT3 machinery. Jason hasn't, there wasn't much rust to knock off.
No, it really wasn't. And it's great to see this opportunity for you know, previous generation, let's call it, World Challenge competitors to come back in. It was, you know, obviously a more relaxed environment to race with the sports club. That's what it's all about. Just experience the machinery on some of the finest circuits in North America that we visit here with the SRO World Challenge Series. So I think it's great, but he had a little bit more on his mind. He wanted to take it to the tail end of this GT3 field as well.
Sure did. And, you know, I think that's why it's called Sports Club. You know, obviously it's the, you know, the AM drivers, the bronze level drivers, etc. But part of the package is, which has been sort of nulled out by the pandemic protocols, but when everything gets back to normal, whenever that might be, there's also a big hospitality program that's a part of it. That you know, so they really get to just enjoy the experience and the ambiance of running at a big pro weekend and having their own little showcase to do it. Boy, Siegel is driving, but Colin is just right there.
Yeah, that Merc has got more speed than the Ferrari at this stage of the game. So Colin's just trying to be patient here and pick his time to make this move. He is hooked up. That car looks dialed in right now.
It does. Siegel turned in a lot earlier there. And looked like Colin got a little bit better exit, but just nothing he could do with it.
Yeah, it's not an easy racetrack to pass on without taking a little bit of a risk, particularly against a savvy competitor like Jeff Siegel.
Up and over 3 and 3A of this part of the track. Just eat a little bit of that curb. By the time that curb ends, you're already better be on the brakes, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much acceleration up and over the top before you think you can charge that corner, but you really can't. You're going to lose the front end and not get the response you're looking for. Meanwhile, questions still to be answered here. There's the officials talking to John Meraki about the movement of that pit stop window. Curious to know what penalty they will give them, whether it will just be a drive-through. To look at the gap at the end of Baptista gets to the line to see how much time they have to play with. It's a pretty hefty lead as Baptista's now getting to the stripe. It should pop up on our timing and scoring screens any moment now. 35 seconds, so there's a chance if they just get a drive-through penalty that they might be really close to keeping that lead. It's a long way around here, though. It's probably about that 35 to 40 seconds. Exact number for many of the teams here this weekend. It's a bit difficult to get the communication with the COVID restrictions that we're running under, not getting down into the paddock here this weekend.
And you might be also saying, well, is it really this big a deal because they're going to win the silver class, but when you come in here as a lone entrant in a class, then you certainly have your eyes set. And certainly Acura, they want class wins, but they want overall wins, and so this is a big deal, and they're going to. I'm sure, John is doing everything he can to make sure that they plead their case, and the officials are doing everything they can to come up with whatever the most fair solution is here. Colin gets close, and then Siegel is able to find a little something and sneaks away to the tune of a car length or so. This little battle is kind of reminiscent of what we saw with Hitman and Marcelli at VIR.
Yes.
And here we go. The graphic comes up here. Drive-through penalty. Oh, and this is interesting because I would have thought, and looking at their time, that they had the Joker to play with. I was sure it was 86.5 or 6 for Siegel. I don't understand this.
Well, if it was 85.6,
that is. No, I'm an 86.5 or 6. I don't remember the exact number.
Yeah.
So.
Understanding that the timing loop time down pit lane, we're talking about that gap that Hitman has up front of 35 seconds, is 42 seconds, but that doesn't account for actually driving that period down the racetrack as well. So I'm going to say it's pretty close to about that 35-second number. So when Hitman serves that drive-through penalty, it's going to be really tight for the overall lead here.
Baptista continues to run second overall, leading in the Pro-Am category. And third overall, second in Pro-Am, is Blakemolen in the number 14 GMG Racing entry. There's a bit of a gap between Baptista and Blakemolen right now. And fourth overall is Max Root in the number 20 Porsche, leading in the AM category, as we have a look here at Rodrigo in that Hublot Porsche. And once again, the scenario here with Siegel and Brown. Again, remember that that Brown and Kurtz came in dead even with Baptista and Fuentes, who now lead in Siegel and Brown. I keep saying Siegel, sorry. Kurtz and Brown are running fourth in class right now. That's a big, big point.
Yes, it is. It really is. So, yeah, I mean, the delta between first and fourth is 12 points, so that's a major swing.
That's one of the things when you have a team that comes in and isn't running the full season, but if you make at least, I think it's 2 starts, 2 events, you then do score points, and so that certainly becomes an issue if you're running well and you're sort of taking points away from a full season competitor. But that's the way racing has been for years, and you got to be able to deal with that sort of a scenario. And Siegel peels in, so they are fulfilling this penalty.
Yeah, and we're trying to get clarification here because we felt that he was within the 1 second allowance that you're allowed per weekend. So too late now. You can't get it back. They're serving that penalty. Maybe the pit stop infraction was not for time.
Sure.
Maybe it was something else.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yep. There are other regulations in play about the pit stops, and it can be, you know, an unsafe release. It could be equipment over the wall. I mean, there's all sorts of things that it could be.
I would have to say that's the case because.
And we get a little clarification on that. Apparently it was for a grounding infraction. And when these cars stop, whenever there's refueling, I know that there's supposed to be a clip that is attached to the car that should there be some sort of a spark, it just nulls it out, takes it away. And maybe that wasn't attached properly or fell off too soon. Boy, after executing then an absolutely superb stop in terms of time, you have that little bit of an issue with something like that. That's tough. And Hinman, he is just flogging it right now. I mean, he's running laps over a second quicker than Baptista, and he's just, as I'm sure that discussion is continuing, he is.
I think they have 3 or 4 laps to serve the penalty, Greg, so maybe they're just trying to gap as much as they can.
I don't think we've seen that penalty actually assessed yet. The only one that I've seen come up on the screen was for the 24 car. But all right, here we go.
See how this plays out.
Yeah, this is going to be fascinating.
Yeah, so right now Baptista is just heading up through the S's, just finishing off sector 2. I believe it's just a drive-through. I don't think there's a stop and hold. I think it's a drive-through penalty.
Let's check with Ryan.
Yeah, I got confirmation that there is a penalty, and it is a stop, and you have to stop for as long as you would stay stopped for a normal pit stop. So it's 87 seconds that they have to be stationary in response to the penalty that they were given. So definitely a crippling penalty here.
Wow, that's over a lap.
Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, this is just tearing Hinman up. There goes Baptista, just rocketed by down the front straight.
Would have been close if it was a drive-through only, but this gives the overall lead and the lead in Pro-Am to Baptista. The good news for Hinman and Blackstock is they're the sole participant in the silver class, so they should still, if they can get the car back out there, as long as they complete 70% of the distance, they'll still get their max score here this weekend.
Kind of curious. All right, now he goes. So the number 14 has gone through.
Well, that wasn't 87 seconds either, so a bit confused too.
Well, I think, would it be from pit in to pit out, just like it was?
Oh, gotcha.
Would be my guess.
Totally, yeah.
So
they're about 30-odd seconds stationary.
Yes. But that has dropped them well back right now, as we've seen Root go through. Brown and Dial have gone through as well. Then Hinman has come out, so well, now we'll see.
He's going to go and have fun.
You bet he is. He's going hunting.
Ryan Dial right in front of him. Gap between Brown and Dial is only just under 2 seconds, so it could be a little fierce battle for that final podium spot in Pro-Am here today between the two DXDT machines.
Oh, we've seen this year. These guys aren't worried about racing each other close either. And it'd be interesting with as Ryan talked about, and you had heard from Ryan Dial, just the different idiosyncrasies of the setups on the cars and then the direction that they went as a result. Whether Brown's car is going to get quicker and he'll drive away from Dial, or whether the reverse will happen here. Some of it. And this is one of those scenarios, I would think, where these two guys have so much experience. They're so savvy, big picture thinkers. I'm talking about Colin Brown and Ryan Dial, that if Hinman comes up and really gets after him, I think they'll just open the door up and say, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, you know, he starts to get aggressive and feisty, and Colin Brown there, not abusing track limits, but just enough to just get those right sides into the dirt and throw a little bit of gravel across the road, maybe taking off a little bit of grip for the car that's following.
You can just hear the Scottish accent of Dial inside the car going, well, thanks for that, mate. Yep, those are the games you play.
And you know, with two fierce competitors like the Scot, Ryan Dial, and young Colin Brown, I mean, they both want to be top dog within that camp.
Oh, you bet.
As you mentioned, Brown and Kurtz came into this event tied for the leads in the Pro-Am Championship with Fuentes and Baptista, so right now it'd be a 10-point swing between first and third. Hitman absolutely piles the speed into the carousel there, and that Acura just tucks in and hugs the inside of the road there. Really nice balance to that race car, it looks like. This is not an easy racetrack to learn. First time here for Trent Hitman, as we mentioned earlier in the show. Just did a long run on old tires yesterday just to get used to the race circuit, but even so, it's very impressive to see him have the fastest lap of the race at 1:39.1 on his first visit here.
This will be interesting here for Baptista and Fuentes if they hang on, and there's still lots of racing to go. So I'm not dismissing anything here, but if they hang on, they've had class wins this year, but they haven't had the overall. So this would be a big, big moment for that team if they can make it happen. Meanwhile, here's Jerome Blakemolen. And right now, he and Baptista are just matching laps, essentially.
Yeah, about 14 seconds apart, obviously on the minimum pit stop time. They left a little on the table there, and just something happened to James there when he had that little bobble there down in turn 7, lost a chunk of time, so it could have been a little bit closer without that little moment that he had.
And here's a look at Max Root, who he just turned a very, very quick lap, a 140.9, and as I say, that's quick. How about Colin Brown just uncorked a 140.1?
Yeah, that's really good this deep into the stint. So
Yes.
you got Brown, Dial, and Hitman all running low 41s, whereas Baptista and Blakemolen running low, they're running low 40.1s and on, and the leaders are about a second slower than that.
Yeah, Dial a couple of tenths off of Brown's time here, so again, over 20 minutes left here in this.
This is the point of the race when you have tire dead going on, that Dial is hoping that that CrowdStrike car starts to back up to him a little bit. He's hoping that his car stays more balanced. You see Colin once again dropping those tires. That will really be annoying.
Yeah, I was going to say, absolutely.
And also, Trent Hitman right now having to deal with that dirty racetrack when they come through turn 9. So I'm not sure how many more times Colin Brown's going to be able to do that before he gets the wrath of the race director.
Well, and that's a really good point. And when you come in here and you're, come in tied for the championship lead, last thing you want to do is get some sort of a penalty for something as easily solvable, if you will, as a track limit violation. But he's in the groove, and that's the line that's working for him right now, I guess.
Really able to do much in terms of catching these two Mercedes. They seem to be trading punches right now in terms of equal laps.
Well, normally I wouldn't really think this would be a big deal, but for Hinman stopping earlier and getting tires, I mean, that's 3 laps more on the tires he's got right now on this track. I mean, maybe that's
definitely a factor.
Part of the limiting issue here.
And then he just took off and wasn't expecting to have to deal with cutting back through the pack. It's one thing to defend if your tires are a little bit worn, but it's another thing to actually go on the attack, hunt people down and get by them.
Let's get a little bit more on Trent Hitman and Racer's Edge, Ryan.
Well, exactly to your point there about not expecting to have to come back up through the field. Part of my conversation with Trent was about just how much fun this track is to drive, but the caveat was he wasn't really sure where you were going to be able to make passes. That was his concern. If he was in a position where he was going to have to knife his way through traffic, wasn't really sure where that was going to happen. I suspect he's working to figure that out pretty quick because it looks like he's reeling these two Mercedes in, but just where he can make that move stick, that's really the question here with 20 minutes remaining.
Yeah, and this isn't a track that's easy to pass on, and you know, down into 7 is obviously an opportunity. You can do creative things in spots, but things have to be falling your way. And one thing I've noticed is in none of the classes that we've really seen here so far this weekend, that 9A, which was put in to become, yes, one, to slow down the cars a little bit through 10, but also to create another overtaking area. And not seeing a whole lot of overtakes there.
No, I think this racetrack, there are, you know, like you said, 2 or 3 legit places to pass, but it's also very easy to defend into those brake zones and just assume that inside line and just slow everything down. And looking at the lap times on that last go-around, DL took half a second out of the gap to Colin Brown, so we'll have to see if he can maintain that momentum.
Meanwhile, here's Baptista, just continues to run almost 15 seconds clear of the field right now. Blakemolen in second, and he's got plenty of room back to Max Root in third.
This is a racetrack that Baptista will probably have more miles on than anywhere, because this was the home of Flying Lizard and K-Pax Racing when he was driving for them. So I'm sure all of the testing and shakedowns and everything was done here, so he probably knows this racetrack as well as anywhere in the US. So certainly demonstrating that prowess right now.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, you know, we think about him more recently, obviously, in the Bentleys with K-Pax, but the Flying Lizard program, he ran GT4 with them in Porsches, and that. So yeah, you're right. He's probably got a huge amount of laps around here, and he just is continuing to. He's running laps faster than the people that are closest to him. Let's put it that way. And he's not that worried about people who are 30 seconds or more adrift at this stage.
Yeah, and I think the impressive thing is he's deep into this stint right now. He's continued to run laps just a second off of his personal best. So that's really good in terms of the tire performance and also the consistency that he's putting into this stint, not taking too much out of the tire early and maintaining some grip here late in the going.
Here's that run into 9A. There's a fair amount of dirt gathered up on the apex curve now, isn't there?
Yeah, I think most of it comes from Colin Brown.
I was just going to say, yeah.
Certainly we've been focused on him a couple of times when he's dropped those right sides in there a little bit. I'm not saying it's intentional, but it doesn't hurt the cause.
Politics in your future, I think, sir.
Any politics in the truck tonight.
Yeah, exactly. Here's a look at the GMG Racing, CrowdStrike, Thermal Club 511 Tactical Porsche. Now Jerome Blakemolen.
I'd have to say with these COVID restrictions, if it's affected anyone's life in terms of the amount of travel they do, I'd say it affects Jerome Blakemolen more than anyone else.
Yes.
He typically does about 40 events a year, so I know he's a big family man, but I'm not sure they're used to seeing him at home as much as they've seen him recently.
Every once in a while you get that dynamic where, you know, it's been great to have you home, but don't you have a race you have to go to soon, please? Yeah, he's just you know, and aside from being just, you know, one of those rare all-universe talents, he's just truly one of the nicest guys.
He always got a smile,
yeah,
and just really enjoys his racing, and people enjoy running with him. I mean, he's
yes,
just super consistent. I remember talking to Brad Kettler at Coda earlier this year when he ran with the group, and just said he showed me his notebook where he'd been writing down the time. He said, "Look at this consistency of this guy; he's just remarkable."
Yep. And the other side of it is that he has absolutely no issue at all with sharing everything. You know, with a co-driver, with a competitor even, and that's very, very special indeed. And for, you know, announcers that are looking for a little insight into something, that are wandering through the paddock, you get a moment with Jerome Blakemolen and you walk away and it's like, boy, how do I put all this into my notes?
Yeah.
He's just such a helpful, nice guy.
It's pretty dirty there. Safety car is out.
And all right, we do have a full course yellow. The double yellows fly And reports are for all that debris right there at the turn into 9, into 9A. And you can see that, and I think part of the reason is you can see that some of that debris is fairly large chunks here. I'm not sure if it's absolute rocks, but just large chunks of dirt. And the car throws that up, it can get in and puncture radiators or worse on these cars. And this is now going to change the dynamic of this race massively.
Totally. I just got a note they're going to make Colin Brown sweep that.
Yeah, exactly. Just pull over, jump out. The corner worker who normally would have to clean that up, and I know this from experience, will be happy to hand you the broom.
Just teasing. I'm sure there were other culprits going through there. It wasn't all about Colin, even though we did see him touch it a little bit a couple of times.
Yeah. And that's true. There was if there was other stuff down already that may have just looked worse when he was a little bit more aggressive on his line through there. So here they get out the scrubbers, and Cruz will jump out on that corner, and I don't know that they're going to really need to, those unique brooms on the back of those vehicles are actually for oil dry that they put down. You don't need that there. You just need to get that stuff swept clean. So let's see how quickly that's going to happen here. But, boy, for Baptista, 14-second lead just gone.
That is brutal.
Yeah.
Won't be hurting Jerome's feelings any.
No, and not at all. And for Hitman, certainly brings him a lot closer to things and see what he's willing to do. Same for Jeff Siegel.
And you also get to an interesting dynamic where Baptista and Fuentes come into this race tied for the lead in the championship. Blakemolen and Sofronis, they're here for one reason, to win.
Yep.
They're not in it for the long haul in the big picture of the championship. So you'd have to feel that Jerome, if he has anything, he's not going to get dirty to get the lead in terms of contact, but you've got to feel that he's going to be pushing really hard and figuring out a way to try and get around the young Brazilian.
Absolutely.
It was pretty dirty.
Those are some pretty big chunks. And you absolutely know that guys like Blakemolen with a 14-second deficit, guys like Siegel with a big, they're the ones on the radio. Well, this really isn't good. We need to get a caution out for this. Everybody else is going, oh, we can drive through this. This is no problem.
Right. Yeah, if you did a survey up and down pit lane, it'll be 50-50.
Yeah, absolutely. The nice thing is, of course, this should be a relatively quick caution. And by our reckoning, this is the first yellow we've had, full course yellow we've had since this event started.
I think the stewards were getting bored.
Yeah, man, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
Need to exercise the corner workers a little bit, get that yellow flag out. It's starting to seize up.
Yeah, it's just been such a remarkable, clean event from all of the competitors, and that says a lot as well.
Yeah, it's just been some quality racing throughout all of the classes here this weekend. Some good action, side by side. Traded a little paint now and again, but not to the point where anyone's had a big one.
All right, see the crew, the signal there. We're done. Let's go. And if they clear quick enough, we might be able to go back to green this time. This is 3A, so there's plenty of time for them to get around here.
What does young Max Root want to do here? He's got the AM lead. That's pretty much a lock for the win here today. So does he go on the attack and try and make a statement here?
Oh, why not?
Porsche versus Porsche. And I'll tell you what, if the young man can make a move on someone like Blakemolen, that'll make everyone stand up.
I was just going to say, that goes on the top of the CV.
I forget when Daniel Morad did that.
Just thinking that.
VIR a few years ago. That was his coming out party, really, in GT racing at least.
Yeah, fended off Blakemolen for an entire stint in identical cars. It wasn't like you could say, well, his car is a little bit better. They were the exact same type of car. And it did. I mean, I think that got people to recognize that his level of talent. So this will be interesting to see. All right. And, yep, lights are out. So we are going green this time. The Acura NSX, the official safety vehicle of GT World Challenge America, powered by AWS and sponsored this weekend by CrowdStrike. We do have those CrowdStrike Fast Lap Awards, and right now that would go to Trent Hitman. Shortly after his stop, came out and turned to 139.158. And there's Martin Fuentes.
Yeah, so he's not going to be happy. His teammate has now got to defend from one of the more experienced drivers in the field. So there's a battle for the overall and Pro-Am lead here between first and second. Then you got a battle between a youngster in a Porsche and one of the more experienced veterans in front of that. Then you got two teammates, Diallo and Colin Brown, want to go at it. You got Hitman, who is leading this race handily. He wants to make an impression. So lots to look for here.
Lots of potential drama that we can see here in the final
Maybe
10
even some
minutes.
argy-bargy, Greg.
There you go. Making sure those tires are as clean as can be, not just warm, but clean. Running through that dirt, so we'll see just what Baptista does when he is allowed to go. There's a zone, and once you get into it, you can roll into it, and he goes right now.
He was in the zone, all right.
You bet he was. Look at Root. He's close to Blakemolen. Up the hill we go, and he dives to the inside.
Blakemolen just misses it a little bit, and Max Root was right there, tried to fill the gap there. Blakemolen responds and takes the line away from him, but has gapped the leader now. He's got a nice, healthy gap there back to the two Porsches.
They're behind Root. There's Colin Brown in the orange CrowdStrike AWS entry. There's Ryan Dial in the Asalco black DXDT machine, and he's defending right away on the back of Hinman, and Jeff Siegel is up on the wheel in the TR3 TI Capital entry.
A tasty little battle's going on right now. Colin Brown very much on the attack. Max Root takes the inside line. Look at this move around the outside by Colin Brown. That takes some commitment, fellas.
Yes, and he was going to do an over-under there, and Root read that and just stayed put to the inside.
Colin Brown would love to get that Porsche as a buffer between he and his teammate. He looks to the inside, tries to tighten up, but Max Root is back on the gas pedal and doesn't allow that to happen.
Blakemolen now is a little bit of a margin back to Root and some breathing room, but Baptista the same to Blakemolen. Look at that. Boy, Baptista has just gone.
Yeah, I think that little bobble there by Blakemolen took the pressure off, and boy, oh boy, that Ferrari has come alive out front. Colin Brown, he may look for a move here. I'm not sure if he's close enough. Max knows that he's coming, try to clean off those tires. Not trying to generate tire temperature when you're weaving around like that. It's more just trying to get them clean. 8 minutes to go.
And Hinman gets a little bit of room now to Siegel, who was on that restart lap right there, thereabouts. But how about Baptista in that one lap, Cal? 2.3 seconds over Blakemolen.
Yeah, just a monster restart lap there for the young man. We've got a little 5-lap shootout here still to go. Lots can happen. And look at that, Root is right back with Blakemolen once again. Seems like Blakemolen was really struggling through the initial part of Sector 1 and up the hill.
Up and over the rise, down into the carousel. Boy, Colin, so aggressive in that carousel, isn't he?
He is. He wants to try and make a move. He can see he doesn't want Ryan Dial any closer to him. Again, he's the championship leader in Pro-Am. He can really tighten that Mercedes up. Has got the grip to do it, but there's not enough room. There's not enough tire dig on that Porsche in front of him to make it stick. Baptista continues to stretch out front.
Watch for it here. Colin, I thought for a minute he might have enough of a run, but not close enough. There they go, and once again.
It's being kicked up there through that chicane.
Everybody's doing it.
Certainly seems to be up to the task here in terms of dealing with this immensely experienced group all around him. Nice little statement for the young man here, hanging tough.
It sure is. Here we go. What's the margin now for Baptista? 2.3 the last time through. As everybody comes to the line, 3.2. He was the only guy into the 41s on that lap. That says a lot here. And some of it is as if you can see the stack up behind Blakemolen. Like this Porsche, it's taking a little bit more time for it to come in.
Yeah, the tires just cool off, and everyone's car reacts a little bit differently to that temperature change and the energy that's in the tire when we get a restart like that. But certainly for the Ferrari, maybe the fact that they were concerned about tire deg helps you when you get this cool off period. They're going to come alive a little bit quicker versus the cars that going to be better on the longer run. That takes them longer to get up to speed initially.
That's a very good point. Oh, Root on the absolute edge coming down through the carousel. There's a look at Ryan Dial. And again, Colin wants to
set
cut
it
down.
up. I don't see it happening though, not without some tears. Even if he gets a little bit further alongside, he's probably going to then commit to it, and that could be a disaster for a youngster that he's battling with right now.
But what it's doing is it's forcing Root to defend just a little bit, pinching it tighter maybe in 7 than he wants to. And that's now giving Blakemolen a little bit of a margin.
Blakemolen's good through the second half of the lap, but seems to lose out a little bit through the first sector. See Hitman looking down the inside of Dial. He doesn't want to take too much risk. He's still got the lead in the silver class.
I think he'd take it if he could do it cleanly, but the last thing you want to do is affect a different class battle. Boy, he's able to just tighten that run up through 1 and not lose a thing, isn't he?
Yeah, the Acura looks really good. Doesn't move around as much as the Mercedes. Mercedes is typically really compliant over the bumps, but today the Acura platform looks really nice. Congrats to the Racers Edge group and really getting a good balance in that race car.
Watch Colin again here. He is just aggressive down through the carousel. Here he comes.
That little overflow out of the 24 machine of Jeff Siegel again as they come out of turn 4. Been doing it throughout the course of this race, so must be just a little bit of an overflow situation with their coolant system.
Well, this time, Root gets through that section of track well enough that there's just Colin's not close enough to try anything.
Does look pretty good right now, so he might have the edge, but he doesn't have the track position right now, and the last thing you want to do is risk.
Yeah.
We saw the two teammates come together, the co-drivers at VIR, so need to see it happen between the two pros in the car here.
Siegel had something for a while there for Hitman, but seems to have dropped off just a little bit here in the back. We got 2 laps to go.
Moves a little bit closer to Blakemolen than he has been. So, it seems like going up the hill that we may have a little bit more performance through that first sector than Blakemolen. See if he can close that gap. Right there, he seems really good. He's able to keep the car over to the left, just like Hitman was doing there, and that sets you up to get through this corner. That's why you suddenly find him a little bit closer here as they enter turn 4.
Everybody in that top group of 6 now into the 141s on that last lap.
So about 1.5 to 2 seconds off their best of the day. Baptista very much in control up front, just burst away from this group and now is maintaining. Hitman and John Meraki, the whole group, they'll be frustrated that they either weren't aware or forgot to change their strategy in terms of making the call. I mean, a lot of this stuff is predetermined when you come into the weekend, but there should have been a memo and a bulletin that had reached them to tell them that they had moved that pit stop window opening time by 5 minutes.
I just love watching those cars through the S's. Baptista right now just has to hit his mark. But this battle for second is by no means done. But for Rodrigo, and let's give all due credit to Martin Fuentes as well in that opening stint he put in.
Yeah, he did. He was there to pounce when James had his little bobble into turn 7, and Martin is comfortable being in the lead. He's won so many races over the last 3 or 4 years here that you put him in that situation, he's not intimidated by it. Doesn't buckle to the pressure. He's just used to it. He's used to leading.
Here's that battle for second, and I do think for Martin this will be kind of special because he's run AM and you know, many years, and he's had overall fast laps and the like. But as a pro-am pairing, running for the sharp end of things, this will be a very, very special moment for him to win an overall race, assuming that everything stays as is as they head down the carousel one last time here for round 5 of the championship.
And even though young Max Root couldn't get around Blakemolen, he's got half a lap left to try and do something. There's still a really good statement here that he's hanging tough with one of the most experienced Porsche drivers on the global GT scene.
Yep. Again, in the same type of equipment.
One thing that Jerome is going for this year is the Porsche Cup. He had a number of programs lined up to try and chase after that title. There's kind of a global structure of points that are awarded. And in fact, Alan Brynjolfsson last year competed in the SRO Championship. Those programs are being compromised by the COVID situation and the lockdown this year for Jerome.
All right, here we go. Last time into turn number 11, the hairpin. And up front, Baptista sweeping through turn 12. Checker flag flies. And Martin Fuentes, Rodrigo Baptista, Ferrari, and Squadra Corsa bring home a win here at Sonoma in the 5th round of the championship, both in Pro-Am and overall. Great drive by both of the pilots of that beautiful Hublot Ferrari. Getting the job done. Blakemolen sits 2nd in Pro-Am and overall. Then, as you said, Max Root, just a superb job. Not just sticking with Blakemolen, but finishing in front of drivers the caliber of Colin Brown, Ryan Dial, Trent Hitman, Jeff Siegel. That's a big statement. However, Trent Hitman gets the crowd strike fastest lap award with that 1:39.158. He said shortly after he got behind the wheel of that Acura accelerated services machine. And then behind Root, who wins the AM category, along with co-driver Fred Portet, Colin Brown, 3rd in the Pro-Am class, 4th overall with Kurtz. Dial, 4th in Pro-Am, along with David Askew, and 5th in the overall. Then Hinman winning silver along with Shelby Blackstock, 6th overall, as you take a look at the results here. And then Siegel and Gondor taking the 5th spot in Pro-Am, 7th overall. And then behind them you see the GT Sports Club drivers, how they finished as well. So it's kind of a drawn out race after those stops for a while, and then that late caution flag to clean up all of that debris and rocks over in turn 99A. Sort of created a different dimension to the race, but I'll tell you what, Baptista didn't miss a beat.
No, he was just dominant once he got to the front there. I mean, it would have been tough without the penalty for the 93 to score that overall victory here today. So congratulations to him and Blackstock. They drove very well. Just a little snafu there in the communication process for the crew to understand the new pit stop regulations, and they'll try and rebound tomorrow where Trent will start from the pole.
Absolutely, that's the doubleheader weekend. One of the great things about it is if you have some sort of a glitch, you've got the very next day a shot at some level of redemption here. And as you said, no question about the speed and the performance they put in. And the irony here to me is that the crew executed a brilliant pit stop. Just happened to be 5 minutes early.
Yeah.
You know, little things.
Everything was great.
Yes.
It's like Father Christmas delivering the presents, but he did it on the 24th of December.
Exactly. And the field making its way down into pit lane. And in short order, we, of course, will be hearing from our class winners, from Ryan Marine. And I'll tell you, this is going to be an interesting interview with Baptista and Fuentes. Again, talking about the two different personalities, the quiet, reserved Baptista.
The yin and the yang.
Exactly. I think Fuentes could be bubbling through the roof here with his energy. But what a drive Rodrigo put in. As you said, very familiar with this track. And but impressive nonetheless. And considering that you know, he drives different cars, and there's Martin running over. You can hear the energy right there. And the Bentley is a very different car than this Ferrari, but for a driver of Rodrigo's caliber, it's just you get in and you drive it.
Yes.
Yeah, what a celebration, and well earned at that.
Yeah, a lot of pressure there with the reset, and he just took off.
Yes.
A little bobble by Blakemolen eased the pressure, allowed him to just hit his marks and focus forward.
I think I saw Martin, or I just heard Martin go back in the lead, baby. And that's big. You know, I mean, they winning in Pro-Am with Blakemolen and Safronis 2nd. Brown and Kurtz end up 3rd, and as we pointed out here, that's a 10-point swing, so that's big. Let's take a look at some of the highlights here. And at the start, Shelby Blackstock over James Safronis. and just heads up the hill. And at that point, just started to ease away from the rest of the field. But Fuentes right there with a great start, jumps to third and hangs into it. And those three started to ease away. And it's a great battle here. And a guy that impressed in the early going was Ziad Gandour. Right there, though, George Kurtz comes back at him a little bit.
Yeah, strong run for George again here today. Made some early moves, and then Colin backed up with his performance in cutting through some of the GT2 traffic. You can see there Kurtz had nowhere to go, and Gandour trying to take advantage of that situation.
And looked inside, outside, back inside, but realized, yeah, there's just nothing I can do with this here. He gets down underneath and lived to fight another day. And here, rare little wide run by James Safronis, and that was enough for Fuentes to slip through, pick up second in the lead in Pro-Am, and then a really close call in the pits.
It was, and then this penalty had to come through the pits. It really cost the 93 car. They still scored the silver victory, but cost them the overall today.
10 minutes left, the caution to clean up turn number 9, then the restart, and a little bobble right there by Blakemolen that caught out Max Root as well. And Baptista had got a great jump, Cal, but that little bobble gave him enough room to break free, and in the end comes through and takes a 2-second victory, giving he and Martin Fuentes the overall win here at Sonoma, as well as the Pro-Am win. And they are on the march right now, making their way over to Ryan Marine in victory circle. Again, Max Root, Fred Portet for Wright Motorsports. Just a superb run once again in that Hopkins Investments Equitable and FFF Corp Porsche. And then in the silver category, just a great run by Blackstock and Hinman once again in the Acura Accelerated Services Acura NSX GT3 from Racer's Edge. And let's get down to Ryan Marine right now with our winners in the AM category.
And also, they finished on the overall podium as well. A great performance from you, Max Root, also Fred Portet. But for you, Max, that last restart, that left you out there in a sandwich between two big names in sports car racing, Colin Brown and Jerome Blakemolen. What was that like for you? Was it a bit of a pinch me moment to be racing with those guys?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's why we're here. We're trying to shoot for overall podiums, and the Wright Motorsports car was fantastic today, so big ups to the guys. Couldn't have done it without them, and we had an opportunity, so we went for it.
Yeah, you certainly did. Well done. And we'll go ahead and have Fred step in if we could get Fred's attention. Fred, we'll have you step in. Max, you can step aside. Congratulations in overall podium in GT3 competition.
Thank you.
How special is this achievement?
Oh, this was really great. You know, we were really disappointed about things that happened at VIR to us, just out of our control. So we were really happy about today, and a little bit of a surprise, you know, a little bit of a gift to us with one of the cars having to serve a penalty. But yeah, we're very excited, very happy, and really shout out to our team. They gave us the car to be able to do it.
And you got another race to do it again tomorrow. Best of luck. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, they do indeed. Sorry about that. Yeah, another opportunity, and you know, they've certainly got the potential to move up that podium a little bit with this pairing here. Fred Portet is proving himself to be darn near, you know, Pro-Am level category driver for sure. And Max Root, I don't think he's going to be M for long.
No, I mean, it was a really solid race for both of those drivers. To end up on the overall podium is quite an achievement with the caliber of pairings that we have in this field here today. But, I mean, Fred Portet really sets the stage for that to happen.
Yes.
I mean, he's up on the wheel early. He doesn't allow a big gap to establish. And then when you got a crew like Wright Motorsports has, they're going to execute on the pit stop. So really, really impressive stuff today.
Absolutely was, and more impressive stuff to hear about, Ryan.
Well, a second win on the season, but this time an overall win for Rodrigo Baptista and Martin Fuentes. Rodrigo, I'm sure that yellow flag was not what you were hoping to see. What were you focusing on that restart to make sure that you could hold the lead?
Yeah, so for sure I didn't want the safety car to come in. We had a big gap for the second place. And I was just trying to keep the pressure on the tires. And when the safety car came out, I was hoping to the bad guys to start fighting, and I think they did that. So it was good. We had a great car.
Really well done. Congratulations
Thank
to you, Rodrigo. We'll have you step over to the side, and we'll bring in Martin. Martin, how about this co-driver of yours? He might not say a whole lot, but he speaks quite loudly as far as his driving is concerned.
No. Rodrigo did a great job. I mean, we were actually stressed out when the yellow flag, because we've been struggling the whole weekend on the pace. But when the yellow flag came out, we were all stressed out. But he did a great job, and we're happy. We're back in the lead on the championship.
Your day started with you facing the wrong way with a problem in qualifying. Could you have imagined it would have ended with an overall win?
No, we changed a lot of things on the car because we were bottoming out tough on turn 1, and the engineer changed a lot of things, and the car was a lot better for the race, and just happy to be back in the top spot.
Big win today. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was, well, that says a lot right there that they had that little bit of an issue, and then the engineers got in, found what they needed to do for a fix, and then those two drivers just extracted everything out of that Ferrari 488 GT3.
They really did, and it's quite the turnaround too, as Ryan alluded to, being backwards up the hill at high speed to top of the podium. So they climbed the hill in 2 different ways today.
Absolutely, just fantastic run. And there's Colin Brown and George Kurtz and Blakemolen and Sofronis all doing a little bit of bench racing and talking about what happened today. And I'm sure there's a little bit of, yeah, well, we're going to get you tomorrow because we get to do it again. And we are looking forward to that unfolding. For Ryan and Calvin, I'm Greg Creamer. We look forward to having you back with us tomorrow for round 6 of GT World Challenge America.
We are going to begin.